Welcome to Ink and Magic, a podcast where we read and discuss the writing craft, world building, and romance of paranormal and fantasy novels.
If you love books with bite, set in worlds of magic and mayhem, then you're in the right place. My name's Nikisha Shanae. I go by Ines.
And I'm Leslie. I write as El Penelope. And welcome to the show.
Hi, Leslie.
Hey, Inez. We are back.
We are back with Dun 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 Kiss of Snow, which I think we both have been waiting for since we started this venture.
And I definitely remember waiting for it the first time I was through the series. Just Hawke's introduced in book 1, and we're like, ooh, I want it. I want his book. And we have to wait until book 10 of the main series.
Hawke and Sienna were introduced in book 1.
Yeah, but I didn't, at that point, you didn't know that they were going to get together. So Sienna was a child and you weren't really thinking about that.
But it was 2 years ago in this timeline.
Right. Yeah.
Because she's 19 in this book.
Okay. And well, maybe it was a little more than, because I thought she was 16 when she first went in.
I don't remember.
At least maybe 2.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Singh makes a point to say that Sienna is 19 going on 20. So maybe she was 16 going on 17 in the first book.
Maybe so. Maybe she was 17. I don't remember. I'm sure there are listeners out there who are encyclopedic knowledge of this series, and I rely on them to correct us.
But I think neither one of us 10 years ago, neither one of us liked this book.
Yeah, so it originally came out in 2011. I feel like I was reading it when it came out because we were caught up by then.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because I always know when I'm anticipating someone's book and it's a multi-book series, it's very hard for the book to match those expectations.
Yep.
Especially with the character who's very much like leaps off the page. He steals all the scenes.
Literally.
Hawke. Yeah. So the first time around, not so much of a fan. I liked it a lot better this time.
Same.
Definitely.
Same.
And I'd forgotten that we get a bonus love story, which is always one of my favorite things. And that so many insane things happen in this book.
There's a lot going on. The prologue is short.
Short and sweet.
We don't need introduce the idea of the exile. I think they were introduced in the last book.
We've heard of them before. Well, maybe a couple books ago, because when Sienna first kind of loses control, I don't think they name it then. So
they did not name it.
You're right.
Which I think was a good decision. That we just know, we saw what Judd could do.
Yeah.
And we learned that Sienna is air quotes worse, but we don't know what
those
it
stakes.
is.
Every book, I don't know how far she can push it. Well, we're getting towards, people with much more power, but yeah, we've raised the stakes. We've raised the power level. Sienna is more dangerous. She's scared of herself. And, we learn a lot about the Exai and why there are not very many of them.
So I'm wondering if it's a good time to bring up the notion of, so again, help me, Leslie, because I will never remember this. When it's at the beginning of the chapter, it's an see, I was about to get it wrong again. So the epigraphs of this book were these email exchanges between, the emails were the daughter always talking to her father, the daughter who was a scientist. Her name was Alice Eldridge, and she was doing a study on psi. This wasn't the first time that we've heard of Alice.
Yeah, she wrote the book on the E-Psi that Nikita gives to Sasha. So she lived 100 years ago in the late 1970s before Silence. And apparently she has this mythical second book on X-Psi that no one has seen.
And so so she's writing her sequel. She's published her first book. She's writing her sequel. And in these email exchanges, she's basically talking about her research and some of her thoughts with her dad. And she's researching the X-Psi. So we're getting some information about who the X-Psi are, what they did, what their lives were like from Alice's emails. And it's super interesting too. We're going to come back circle. So put a pin in this. But her emails are all classified by the Psi.
Right.
So it's all emails to dad, because she and her mom like to talk on the phone, but she and her dad like to write to each other. And her dad was like an archaeologist
in Egypt.
They were on a dig. Yeah. So she's writing to her dad, and the Psi, this is like from a vault, and the Psi are classifying the emails. And for like the first 2/3 of them, they're like, no, this is not important. No action taken. And that will change, and we will come back.
And I noticed, because I was listening to the audiobook, and at least in my version of the ebook, there was a little bit more on this in the audiobook than in the ebook.
Oh,
Some of the
yeah?
things weren't in the ebook, and I was trying to say, was mine not updated? But it was a little bit different. I noticed that in the first couple of chapters. I didn't check each chapter, but I think that's interesting. I don't
That
know.
is interesting. Y'all see, y'all should be listening to some ebooks. I mean,
Some
listen
audio.
to some audiobooks.
You never
Okay,
know.
so those were the interstitials. And then when we meet Sienna and Hawke in this book, Sienna is in Hawke's office because she just got into a dominance fight.
Right. Yeah. So she's a soldier. She's been put on patrols. And for some reason, another soldier, Maria. Is Maria the one who was in the book with Drew, or was that a different character? I can't remember.
No, Maria is Sienna's age.
Okay. So yeah, she's gotten into some kind of, altercation, physical altercation. And Hawk has to punish both of them.
But the thing that's impressed upon us is that Sienna did not use her abilities. And Hawke knows what her abilities are.
Hmm. Yeah, they've had Judd and I guess Sienna, but specifically Judd had to confide in him about the Xi. And so, she's been forbidden from using her abilities, and she knows they're very destructive. She's actually very much afraid of her own
Mm-hmm.
abilities. So, it says at one point, Maria's wolf decided that Sienna was fair game, even though the Psy are physically not as strong, and she wasn't using her ability, but she was still holding her own in the fight,
Yeah.
apparently.
Yeah, because the same way that that people were fighting with Judd is we don't understand where you are in the hierarchy.
Right, right.
And Maria needed to establish. I mean, she was ticked off with something else and she took it
Mhm.
out on Sienna, but she needed to establish that Maria wanted to establish that she was more dominant than Sienna. And showed she was wrong.
And so, yeah, I think Hawk is in this position where he punishes Sienna more harshly because she's stronger and she needs more control, I guess. And Sienna's just embarrassed. And there's all this tension that's been building up between them, the sexual tension for books and books that they're not going to act on. Yeah, and Hawk's not really happy about having to punish her.
He doesn't want to be near her. He does not want to be around this young woman because he's having difficulties controlling himself.
And that's an alpha problem that we see in a lot of these changeling males specifically, where like they're holding themselves back all the time.
He holds himself back a lot in
Yeah, I
this
mean,
book.
I don't know if you can call this a slow burn, but it is a very long progression of holding back.
It's a slow burn, and I hate slow burns, but
Mhm.
I was all in this slow
Really?
burn because there was a reason for it to be a slow burn.
Mhm.
Some people just like to play with the tension. They weren't playing. They had so many mazes to navigate in this book before they could find the treasure.
Fair.
Yes.
And then we have this bonus love story, which I
Yeah.
totally forgot about, between Walker, who is Sienna's uncle, and Lara, the pack healer. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of a secondary love story, and this one did not disappoint because this one is easier. It's sweeter. They still have some obstacles, but it's just a much more straightforward story, which I think we needed the balance of that.
That's very fair because you have Lara, both Sienna and Lara are like, I want you.
Mhm.
And both Hawke and Walker are like, yeah, no, I don't think this is a good idea.
And also, I'm scarred by my past, by someone else who I loved before, or not loved, but, was involved with before on some level.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we know that Hawke believes that he had found his fated mate when he was just a kid and she dies.
right.
And we learn that Walker has a child.
Well, yes. He has 2? Oh, you
He
said 1.
has one, and we learn, we're not spoiling anything.
Oh, we
We
are.
learn that the woman that he had a
His baby mama.
pregnancy contract. Yeah, the baby. I was trying to be professional, Leslie. The person he had the contract with, she was pregnant when the order came down. Now we learned in Judd's book, or we learned in the first book
For the
that
second book, yeah.
yeah,
Maybe the
that
first book.
the Laurens, they were going to be rehabilitated and they decided to run. And because they were going to wipe out the whole line.
Mhm.
Because Sienna's mother committed suicide.
Right.
She
And
jumped off the bridge.
we get hints that it was also because they were just too powerful. There was too many cardinals. There was too much power in this line. They were also quote unquote defective, but there was a lot of politics going on. They were like, these Laurens are too complicated. We have to get rid of them.
So the order comes down that the whole line is about to be gone. So Walker comes home. He's supposed to be putting his affairs in order. He comes home. This woman that he has the contract with was pregnant, and she aborted the child.
Yeah. And that was really heartbreaking for him. And then she left. She was like, I'm not a Lauren. I'm bouncing out. I'm going to have more kids. And so this was Marley's mother, who's Walker's daughter, who's the existing daughter. Yeah. And so he's got scar, even though he was silent at the time. I mean, he wasn't that silent because it still basically broke his heart.
Remember, they talk a lot about with Psy, their children are their artwork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's their legacy.
Mm-hmm.
But only if they're perfect. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, and so Marley wasn't going to be perfect, and the child in her womb wasn't going to be perfect, so she cut ties. And so Walker is walking around with this on his shoulders. Even though he didn't love this woman, he loved his kids.
Mm-hmm.
We learned that he was a trainer. And I don't think we're getting too out of pocket to talk a bit about him, because he starts to work with the kids in the den, and then we learn that he worked with the kids that were going to become arrows.
Right, because he's a powerful telepath, and he was teaching them how to control their psychic powers and teaching them back doors and little hidden ways to survive, which I thought was great because we're hinting. I mean, it's hinted at that he wasn't just a normal teacher. He wasn't just like elementary school teacher. He was doing something different. And when we find out, it's like, okay, yeah, that really tracks. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
So it's almost like he's a healer.
Yeah.
So Lara and Walker are really compatible, but Walker is not ready for it.
Right.
So he pushes her away, and then you just see him doing these wonderful acts of kindness and these acts of care, because he really does care about this woman, and he wants to take care of her, and he wants to have a friendship with her. He just doesn't think that he can be her mate.
Right. Yeah. And Laura's great because she really wants him, but she's going to stand up for herself. And she's like, this is as he's being alpha-ish, alpha male-ish, and bossing her around, trying to make her sleep and eat and do all these things that she's like, I don't have time for this. She's setting up other dates, and she's like, no, you didn't want these privileges, so now you can't just come and do this. Like, I love that
she explains it to him. She's like, what you are doing right now, you're giving mixed signals, because these are skin privileges that you are trying to achieve with me. And he's like, oh, okay.
He has no idea what's happening.
He doesn't, which is kind of beautiful, because it's so he's not trying to like trick her or work her over or anything like that. He's just like, I really care about you. I want you to take care of yourself. I want to take care of you.
And he doesn't understand, because he's been silent for so long, and now he's not technically, but emotions and feelings are still a thing he hasn't been able to navigate.
So there's chemistry there with Lara and Walker that will combust over the book, but we have been shown that Sienna and Kit have been dating, but we learn in this book, because Kit steals a kiss when Hawke is walking towards them, but we learn in Sienna's POV that there was no chemistry, and they both knew that.
Yeah, so they're friends, and Kit's pushing at Hawke. Kit knows the deal. He's trying to help his friend at risk of life and limb, honestly, because more than once Hawke threatens his life. But yeah, he seems like a good friend, and yeah, they realized they had no chemistry, which just led to a good friendship, apparently.
Yeah. So as this is happening, Sienna, like Lara, is like, okay, you don't want me? Fine. I'm going to go out and find somebody who does. And Sienna shimmies herself into some skin-tight jeans, puts on a revealing top, and she goes out.
Well, also because I think she knows that Hawke has called some woman.
A booty.
Yeah, a booty call. But yes, he has made a booty call. And Sienna's like, oh, for real? All right, well, then I'm going to the bar.
But also, look at why he made the booty call. Because his wolf was getting out of control. And people were telling him, you need to do something, because they can sense it. Changelings need that touch. And he'd been denying himself because his wolf wanted Sienna.
And it affects the other male wolves, not just it really would have like a terrible effect on their woes if they feel him spiraling. So he was like, okay, I can take care of it with this person who I'm not going to hurt her feelings because she's down. But yeah, Sienna sees them walking together and Kirk's out basically.
Yeah, all out of duty, right? I need the booty because of my duty.
You're ridiculous.
And so the new adults all go to the club. Sienna is having herself a good old time. It's really interesting because she's pretending to drink, but again, she's so responsible. She gets in that fight with Maria, but she pulls her punches because she knows she's so powerful. She gets up and she's dancing and having a good time, throwing back water because she knows better. As a side, the alcohol, it can mess with him, and she knows she cannot lose control.
Right.
But nobody else, well, Kit knows, but nobody else knows that she hasn't lost control. And the bar owner calls Hawke.
Yeah, because there's humans around, there's other changelings around. She's on the bar with somebody dancing, and the men or the males of the pack are, there's a lot of tension happening, and things are not going to go well. So the bar owner,
because it's the leopards that are there and the wolves that are there, and then yes, other changelings and humans. But the bartender sees that the leopards and the wolves, they're not sure. Like there's a truce there, but at the same time, they're not gonna let Sienna's theirs. The wolves feel like Sienna's theirs. But at the same time, Sienna's been living with the leopards, and so it's kind of like it's another dominance game.
It's not just her, too. It's like, since the packs have this alliance, now everybody's fair game. So wolves and leopards, can go after each other romantically, and that can cause tension amongst their own people. So there's all kinds of tension layers going on here.
So Hawke needs to come down and get his kids.
And apparently the bar owner alternates between calling Lucas and calling Hawke, and it was Hawke's turn. But also it was Sienna, so he knew to call Hawke.
And also, we'll get to this in a second, but Sasha is very, very, very pregnant, and Lucas wasn't going nowhere.
True. That is true.
So Hawke gets there.
And somehow he manages to be in the car alone with her. There's all these people in these multiple cars. I was listening.
No, Leslie, back up.
Okay.
Because Hawke walks into that bar. We need to set the scene. Hawke walks into that bar, and it is Moses, and the people are the waters, and the seas part.
Everyone freezes. They sense his alphaness, and they're like, uh-oh.
He doesn't even need to raise his voice. He doesn't even need to give a command. Sienna's up on that bar. He's like, are you walking out or am I carrying you out? And she has the audacity to give him lip.
Right.
So she not only gets carried out, she gets spanked in front of everybody.
Yes.
Yes.
Hawke takes care of his business.
But what Sienna doesn't understand, that everybody else in that bar, every changeling in that bar, and probably every human male that was in that bar understood, is that spanking staked a claim on Sienna, and ain't nobody gonna come near her again.
If they didn't know before, they knew now. And I think the ripples had been going out before. A lot of people knew, but it's like public knowledge now that he grabbed her, threw her over his shoulder. It's winter.
And yes, then she does end up in the car alone with him. He came down with one other person, and they were because they assumed that all the kids were drunk.
Right.
But one of the other one of the other wolves was very responsible. And he's like, I have not had a drink. I saw what was happening. I was responsible. I can drive them home. So everybody else divides up in 2 cars. And then, Sienna is alone. And it's like, it's only one bed.
It's only one car. Yeah.
It's only one car. And they take a little drive.
Yeah. And they take a little detour because they're bickering the whole way. She's standing her ground and she's rightfully upset. Like, you don't want me, but you won't let me have anyone else, which is this classic alpha quandary, I guess, when it's situations like this. And it's not fair, And then they slow dance in the street, which was a sweet scene. Like, he takes you you want to dance? Okay, I'll dance with you. And he just pulls over and they start dancing. And they have a moment.
They do. And then it fades to black. Which is why maybe I wasn't liking these books, or this particular book, so much at the moment. Because that's not the first time that she does that to us. It worked now, But I think in my more younger mind, I think I was mad.
That we don't see how they get home or the end of that exchange?
No, just literally a fade to black makes me feel like you're not showing me something.
Okay. Yeah.
I got over it.
Yeah, I don't think that bothered me. Because it was a really emotional thing, and they're not ready for anything more necessarily.
Mhm.
But it was a big step, honestly. It was sort of like, okay, this is real. I'm still not doing this, but we can dance. We can touch. I don't think they've really touched like that before at this point. So,
No. This is why this book was a slow burn.
mm,
It was like a bunch of Christmas lights or a ball of yarn, and you were unraveling
mm,
every single part of it
yeah.
slowly because you knew it wasn't going to work unless you unraveled every single knot.
And I'm just thinking about 12 stages of intimacy, which we always come back to. This is chapter 9, early in the book. They're is body to body one of them? I don't have the list in front of me. But, like, they're wrapped up in each other, but nothing's gonna happen for a very
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
So, I wonder if you have to play around with those stages, you kind of come
Mhm.
back 3 steps forward, 2 steps back
Yep.
kind of thing, when you have to make it last a long time before they're going to consummate or really even admit to each other.
She 1,000% did that because Hawk hasn't changed his mind about his booty call.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's
He's
still
still
gonna happen.
Mhm.
Because he thinks he does not think he can be with he can't Hawk thinks that he cannot be mated to someone else. If he thought he could be mated, I think he would have gone for it. But he truly believes he's lost his chance because you only get one mate.
Right. And even though he was not mated, he believed he was going to be mated. But it's that plus he thinks she's too young. There's several layers. He thinks she's too young for him. He doesn't want to hurt her because he knows he can't give her everything. So those dominoes eventually start to fall. But yeah, there's a couple of things happening in his mind.
This is an age gap romance, right?
Right. Yes.
So whenever we're talking about age gap romances, what the patterns that I see when we're talking about an age gap romance is that they can't be together because they think that everyone will be against their relationship because their ages are too different. So that's usually the conflict of an age gap.
That's that's usually one of them. Or that it's external and also internal. It's like, can we be together? Do we have anything in common? Because you were born when I was in
Yes.
college or something.
Yes. Absolutely. So Nalini Singh is showing us all these things that they have in common.
Mm,
They're both very powerful. They both are they're dominant, and you start to see that Sienna, you're going to find out soon that she wants to be more submissive and that she's trying to figure out a way to be a little bit more submissive, but she's not going to let him walk all over her at all.
mhm.
But when they're alone, she's like, okay, I can be a little bit more submissive. We'll get there. The thing that it really interested me is that Nalini Singh took away the other half of that equation.
Right,
That what will other people think?
right.
Because in the previous books, everybody was like, you better not go near her. Don't you dare. Don't you think it. And now that everybody is saying, oh, I feel like they're thinking, this looks to us like mating. He
Mhm.
thinks that he can't mate, but this looks to us like mating. Go for it. Like nobody, not one single person is like, don't do it. I mean, Judd had a talk with him.
Right.
Lucas had a talk with him. Walker has a talk with him, but nobody is saying, don't do it.
Before, when, she was too young. There was a time in the series where she was too young. So now she's 19 going on 20. She's
Mhm.
more mature, she's more stable in her power. So I think, yeah, the community is seeing the tension between them just escalate. So they're like, okay, and I think before it wasn't that don't touch her, it was like don't touch her yet. I think the subtext when Riley was talking to him in a previous book, it's like, she's not ready yet. It's kind of the thing that I got from it.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like it was a never, never ever do it. But as it's gotten more and more clear that these people are just for each other, everyone but them can see it. So yeah, she takes that whole part of the conflict off the table, which is nice. It's nice to have like a little refreshing to have a different aspect of the conflict.
Yes. So it's not about the age gap anymore.
But it's still, Hawke is this extremely powerful, dominant alpha, been alpha since he was 15. Somehow
Yeah.
he was leading a whole pack at 15.
Yeah.
We know that Sienna didn't really have a childhood, so she's an old soul. which helps, I think.
That she's an old soul, but also that she was an adult really quickly.
Right.
As
Yes.
a child, she was an adult.
Yeah. She literally didn't have a childhood because she didn't play, but she was also forced to like murder people when she was a child and in this intensive arrow training by Ming Laban. She lived with Ming Laban for 10 years. She didn't, yes, she was an adult very, very early,
She was an adult.
which doesn't mean that she's not immature sometimes because she still
Mhm.
has her moments. And for me, the age gap, it was still a little bit, I mean, I don't love age gaps. Sometimes they're icky. And for me, it was the differential was more that when they start getting together, she keeps backing off, like, oh, I can't handle this. I can't deal with this. When she was so gung ho at the beginning. And it's like, well, yeah, you're 19 and you're young, so you can't handle it. But
You've
so
had
why?
none of these experiences before.
Right. Yeah. No experience. At one point, she tells Hawke, I don't want to die a virgin. And he's like, oh, but it was still an imbalance in, I don't know about maturity. I mean, maturity, yes, and that you can get over that, but like readiness,
Experience?
it, I don't want to say experience because I'm not. It's not really like sexual experience. There was something connected to her emotions and their relationship where she kept backing off when he was finally ready to move forward, and that seems like it was a function of the age gap that I didn't love because it kind of gave me a little bit of ick.
I hear that because she did do that. I saw it differently. I think that you are 100% right, but I saw it from like a slightly different perspective. I saw it of it because when we were in her head and she was like, I cannot let him boss me around. I cannot let him take away all of my, not even agency. I felt like she was like, I cannot let him boss me around. But at the same time, I heard her like, I want to be softer. I don't want to have to fight this much, but I have to stand up to him too.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was it too. So I think we're seeing the same light show, but from
Different
different
angles, yeah.
angles.
Because I didn't necessarily see her trying to be more submissive. I didn't get that. I did get that, if I'm going to be in a relationship with this man, he can't boss me around. He can't be my alpha because we won't be equals. And so, yeah, I'm thinking my issue was like when two people aren't equals, whatever equal means in the situation, that is a problem. And when she's consistently backing away, she's saying, I'm not equal. Maybe she had to just get ready inside of herself to match him. But when that imbalance of
Mhm.
something, maybe it's a power imbalance, not necessarily power because she's so powerful technically with her actual ability. There was just that imbalance that made me feel uncomfortable.
Okay. Okay. Still, though, there was a lot of consent in this book. Like he asked permission
Oh
every
yeah.
step of the way. As he was taking rights, he was asking
Yeah.
permission. I felt like this was a love triangle. I was telling Leslie this earlier. This was a love triangle between Sienna, Hawke, and Hawke's wolf. And I felt like the wolf was seducing both of them because there were points where Sienna could always tell if she was talking to Hawke or if she was talking to the wolf. She always knew. And
Mhm.
there were times on the page where she was talking to that wolf and that wolf was doing things that Hawke said, I'm not going to do this.
The wolf was pushing Hawke, that's for sure, because the wolf had made the decision. And I think at one point she tells him, like, their conflict becomes when they start to get together, you're holding back from me.
Mm-hmm.
You believe that you were mated at 10 years old, but like you never actually had the bond. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the wolf knows, the man doesn't know. So
Yeah.
there is that split in him that she recognized on different levels. And yeah, like the wolf was like going forward regardless of the man's concerns and fears, which is nice. I think that's what your wolf was for.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved it because I hate love triangles, but I was digging this one. I was digging it.
A love triangle, three people or three beings in two bodies. It makes it a little easier.
Yes. Yes, I was so there for it. Um, so Hawke gets with the program. He rejects his booty call. When Sienna goes back to so he's about to be with his booty call. And he's realizing, yeah, I don't really want to do this. And he gets the call that Sienna's back in the bar.
Back in the bar with Kit. I don't know
Mhm.
if that was part of the call, but that's what it ends up being.
And she planned it. Sienna had planned this, and Kit was going along with it again, taking his life into his own hand by agreeing with Sienna to go to the bar to make another scene because she knew that Hawke was going to come and get her.
Yeah, someone tells her that she can't just, is it Indigo or some female tells Sienna, like, you got to step up the game, like you can't just let him do this with this. So she's like, okay, bet I'm gonna go and make him jealous in the way that I know will absolutely make him jealous. And Kit is on board and go, Kit, we always loved Kit. And he just shows that he is ride or die. He is risking death for this. Because it was good. It was good. And she's tempting him. And we haven't talked about the external plot, because after he goes and gets her the second time from the bar, we get another hit of this external plot, which is this Psy incursion onto their territory.
Yeah. The Psy are coming back. Henry and Shoshana are coming back
With
to
pure Psy.
Pure Psy is coming back to try to wipe them out. And they're gonna have to deal with this. But before they do deal with it, we need to figure out what it is. The audience, the readers, need to figure out what it is that Sienna does, and we learn that as Sienna and Hawke are coming from the bar the second time. Hawke bites her, and she burns him.
Yeah,
because Sienna Lauren is a fire starter. Tell them exactly what she does, though, Leslie, because all I see is Drew Barrymore with red hair and flames.
And I didn't get that at all. You were talking about like Firestarter and how, is Nalini Singh Gen X? Is she like having these same touchstones that we have? She has this thing called cold fire, which is basically a fire that doesn't burn her. It wraps around her, and it doesn't necessarily burn, like start a fire, but it can wipe out anything. And it's incredibly powerful. She can control it to a certain extent. When she gets too emotional, or when it builds up too much, she has to release it into the earth. And so at one point, at one point she does that when Hawke has pushed her. She's like, I gotta go. I gotta release this fire. And he tries to touch her, and she burns him. She's like, I told you I gotta release this fire. Like you're burning yourself with your own problem. And it becomes, this builds up as a problem. So this is the X power. It's what makes them so feared, and it eventually kills them, like every other side. Like eventually their power is going to destroy them. But X specifically, because there's only a few ever, and there's never been a cardinal X, or they don't know of any other cardinal X's. So she's the most powerful of the most powerful, and she's just trying to keep it together and not murder everyone in the world. At one point, it says that Ming told her if she loses control, she could destroy the entire continent that she was standing on. So,
and she loves Snow Dancer. This is her family. She does not want to hurt anybody.
Right.
And so when they start to find new evidence of a new incursion about to come, she gets worried. I can't remember exactly how this happened. I've forgotten. But she gets worried because she worries that Ming will see her signature, that she has to release the fire.
Right. There was this, they catch these Psy people. There's a fake pregnant lady, because the Psy are trying to understand changelings in their emotionless ways. Like, oh, they won't hurt a pregnant lady. And they don't realize they can tell that she's fake. And so it was at a similar time that she had released her power. And so she knows that one of them sensed it, and she's like, okay, my signature is very unique. If Ming finds out I'm alive, it's a big problem. So she's afraid of that. She's given herself away.
Yeah. And then, Sienna and Hawke are they're starting to dance. They're starting a mating dance. They're starting to get closer. And he needs to send someone into this operation because they found out where the center of the Pure Psy operation is. And they need to send 2 operatives in to set off to lay some charges. And the only people that can do it are Judd and Sienna.
Right. Or they're the best people to do it. They went through all the other options. Yeah. Yeah.
And he makes an alpha call to let the woman that he has feelings for go and do this dangerous thing.
Which is great. I mean, he needs to be able to use her as he would any other of his people. And this is after they've had their first kiss. This is after they've sort of started actually playing together and having some level of acceptance that maybe, he realizes he can't deal with any other women. That's not on the table anymore. So he's got to save his pack and to save himself, he's got to do something with her. And he realizes also that even just hugging her, like a little bit of contact, releases that pressure that's been building up in him. So that's helpful for everybody. But yeah, he's got to make a tough decision that he doesn't want to make to use her ability because she's very capable. She's a good soldier. She's very smart. She was trained by the best tactical mind in the Scinet. And he would be crazy not to use her. And so to his credit, he does.
And then they don't report back on time.
And he's freaking out.
Everybody's freaking out. well, he's freaking out. Because Judd went too, and Brenna can feel Judd along the mating bond. And that's when Hawke is like, I can't feel her.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And he just goes for a run.
Yeah, so we skipped over a lot of stuff, but
we did skip over some stuff. But let's tie that all up in a nice bow. She does get back, and then he makes a decision that if she can survive this really dangerous op, she can survive him, and they're going to be together.
Yeah, and that's when they start making out, like he's made this decision, and I think that he's taking it slow as he can take it, but I think that's also kind of when she starts backing up a little bit, like, oh, can I really handle this?
True. And while this is going on and she's doing her 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, she goes and visits Sasha, who is very, 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 very pregnant.
Yes.
And Sasha's water breaks.
Right, of course. We have to have this baby. So
that's what happens in pregnancy. We have to have this baby. And so Sienna's there when Sasha goes into labor. In Sasha's labor, this scene was a thing of beauty. Because Sasha sends her contractions, the pain of them, through the mating bond to Lucas because he insists. And I just had to sit with that for a minute. Because have you ever seen those like YouTube and TikTok clips where they hook the guy up with the lead thing on his belly and he experiences contractions and they're all crying like little babies? And Lucas is like, no, give me your pain.
And then he actually has a respect for her ability to handle pain.
But not only that, and I've only ever seen one other book do this, the baby gets scared and does not want to get born.
Because Sasha can feel the baby's emotions.
And so
can talk to it.
Yes, they start talking to the baby in utero. Come out, we love you.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. And the only other book that I've seen this happen in is one of my favorites, Thea Harrison's Dragonbound. It's not that book, but that's
that couple.
That's the couple. And I just loved it. I didn't even remember that, but I loved it. They talked the baby into being born. It was beautiful.
There's something about like a sentient baby in utero that is, because Sasha and Lucas are still having sex. So how much does this baby understand of what's happening around it?
We probably don't understand what's happening. They just feel the love.
We know the baby can hear its father's voice and responds to Lucas's voice, and so yeah, there's difficulties when you have this sort of sentient what do you call it? Embryo? Not embryo, but it's a baby by that point, I guess.
Since we're talking about Sasha, Lucas, and new baby Nyla.
Is it Nadia?
Nadia, and they call her Nyla.
Oh, okay.
Once again, Nikita steals the show for me.
Yes.
She sends the baby a trust. And she won't really talk too much about it. But you can see that this woman, love might not be the right word.
Yeah, because I think Nikita is silent. I don't think she's breaking silence per se. Actually, whatever silence means now, like what does it actually mean to be silent? And to not just because of the whole Psy thing with children or their legacy, that's one part of it, but to actually care. Because we know Nikita actually does care, but she can't show it for her own personal reasons, and also because her enemies, if anyone knows that she cares, then it makes Sasha even more of a target. But like, yeah, Nikita denies giving this trust fund, first of all. Sasha calls her up and is like, thanks. And she's like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And it hurts Sasha's feelings. So even as the reader, I think the reader is more endeared to Nikita than Sasha is, because her mother is doing things, but not giving her the emotions that she wants.
Yeah. So that family dynamic isn't the only one that's happening. As you know, they're preparing for the snow dancers, and the lepers are preparing for this next incursion. There's some beautiful scenes between Hawke and Sienna's brother Toby.
Oh yeah.
Toby is my new crush. I have a problem having fictional crushes on young boys. It's a problem. I have a fictional crush on Aang, the Last Airbender, in the cartoons. I'm watching the live action and I'm like, that's a child. But in the cartoons,
He's still a
I have
child.
a crush on Aang. In this book, Toby is just, he's grabbing at my heartstrings. We see him and Sienna together, and he's so caring of his sister, and he was this silent kid, and he's learning to he's learning to play, he's learning to have friends. And
Mhm.
Hawke, he gets a his hair is too long, and Hawke is like, you need a haircut. And so they basically spend the day together because he's afraid of scissors.
Mhm.
And Hawke takes him out in the middle of nowhere and just lets him scream, like primal yell, as he's cutting his hair. And they just have a day together, and it was so lovely.
Yeah. It was really nice. And you see Hawke as caring. You always see him as kind of hard and decisive, but he's also very caring and empathetic towards everyone, especially the children. And the changelings love the babies.
Yes. And so do paranormal romance readers, apparently. Um, I also thought it was a really nice choice of Singh's to wait to explain the backstory with Sienna and Ming, to
Mhm.
show us that she's never been a child, because that also helps to change Hawke's mind of,
Yeah.
this is not a little 19-year-old girl. This is a different kind of being. But also Singh waits to tell us, because we unexperienced non-Sing writers, like, we're dumping backstory like early. No, this is like over halfway through the book where we finally get the backstory of what happened with Hawke and his dad.
Yes. Yes, and that's a great technique because there's so much info dump in romance. A lot of times,
Mhm.
first chapters are like, and my whole backstory, and I'm like, why
Mhm.
are you doing this? Wait, build the suspense. We know something has happened, something bad. He doesn't want to talk about it, and then it's revealed sort of during like a sexual encounter, so that it brings them closer together. It's bringing them physically closer together, but she's like, yeah, we can do the physical stuff, but you're still keeping me out. I need you to let me in. And she asks what happened to his parents, and he finally starts to tell her. And so that is a way to, revealing the character, revealing the backstory, the emotional conflict, bringing them closer together, making the physical contact more meaningful because it is connected to who they are as people, and he trusts her, and there's so much happening. And yeah, we're so far in the book that this is when we really need to know, because it pushes the relationship forward. The backstory is important to pushing the relationship forward, and that's why we get it now. If you can do that as a writer, it's not info dump, it's
Yeah.
something that's vital to the experience of the story.
Yeah. 1,000%. So they're getting closer because they've shared all of this. They've shared things physically, they've shared things internally, they share things emotionally. And Sienna, she keeps getting these buildups.
She's getting worse. Yeah. I mean, we know that no Xi has lived past like 25. Maybe
Yeah.
is the oldest one. So
Yeah.
she's an elderly Xi at this point.
So they need this book. They need
A
Alice
second Alice.
Eldred's second manuscript. And Judd goes and asks the ghost for it.
Yeah.
And the ghost finds something. And we're in the ghost POV where he's like, should I?
What does it do for me? Like,
Mhm.
is it better for me if this Xi goes nuclear? Is it better to have this Xi? Because the ghost knows that Sienna is still alive and is an X. Judd has trusted him with this. And so, yeah, he's calculating it. And at first you're like, he's not going to do it because he thinks
Mhm.
that it's not going to meet his goals.
Yeah.
And we see him finding something, and it sounds like, oh, he's in a bookstore. He's found this dusty glass container that has the book inside of it. It's a very good head fake.
Should we unfake it and tell them what it is?
So it turns out that Alice Eldredge, who was living and writing in 1973 before silence, she
Well, hang on, because the emails around this time
Mhm.
start to change. and it starts to have actionable items. The sides start to tag it as actionable items.
Right. And part of those emails, we sense that the Psy have been wiping certain things from people's minds who she's mentioning in these emails. And so we find out that apparently Alice was taken by the Psy. Some part of her mind was wiped and she was put into a cryogenic sleep and then left in some facility somewhere and forgotten about. So the ghost manages to find her body, her in stasis in this ancient cryogenic cell, still alive, and brings it to Judd.
Yeah. Thanks for the delivery.
Like in the crypt of this church. It was just very cloak and dagger. Like, let me show you something in the basement.
But the thing of this book is that we talk about loaded guns and that they're going to go off at some point. Sienna was the loaded gun of this book from
Yeah.
the first page. From the book when she made the crack in the wall.
Right.
She was a loaded gun, and we knew that she was going to go off at some point. The incursion happens. The pure Psy descend.
And they descend while Sierra has gone off somewhere because she thinks she's about to blow. So she's separated herself from the den, and she's not super close to the fighting when it starts. And there's this whole thing with Hawke, you know, like he won't let her leave, but she's like, I'm going to kill everybody. Please let me do this. So then, yeah, the incursion happens. They're at war, and the leopards are protecting the city because they know Pure Psy are going to attack the city, and the wolves are protecting the mountains.
Yeah. During this, I do want to point out when Sienna does run, Hawke, of course, tracks her and finds her. They bang, of course, because this is a romance novel. And then he tells her, as she's telling him her fears that she's going to destroy everything, he's like, and she's basically telling him, just let me go. And he's like, no, you come first. Because he's pack alpha, but he's like, no, you come first, which is like, that's something that you say to a mate.
Right. And there's still no mating bond.
There's still no
He still
mating
doesn't, he still believes in his heart that he can't mate, but everything else is on the table. And there's points where Sienna's like, I don't want to be second best. You know, she says that several times. And then eventually she's like, well, I love him so much that I guess I'll just take whatever he has to give me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still, she's burnt out. She's, you know, releasing power like mad. And the fact that he is willing to say that I'm alpha, but my pack is supposed to come first, but I can't do this without you. Yeah, it's
so he has to be on the front lines because, of course,
right.
And so they're starting to take hits, and Sienna's like, oh, hell no. And she jumps into the fray and she cocks her loaded gun, which is her fire starter.
Firepower, cold firepower.
And she is able to wipe. We saw before that when she went off and the fire consumed her, Hawke was with her and she was able to protect him. So we got a clue. Because now when the bad guys are there and they're starting to gain an upper hand, Sienna comes in and she basically does a tomahawk like fire around all of them, and it passes over the wolves and it passes over the changelings and goes straight for the Psy, and it gets the Psy.
And it disintegrates them. It's like they just are not there anymore. And Henry Scott has gotten, you know, he's in the middle of the battle. He's protected. He showed up to see his battle. So he's wiped out. Everyone's wiped out. There's a second wave coming. Like if she hadn't done this, the wolves were done for because a whole second wave of Psy they didn't expect was coming. She's able to pinpoint all the bad guys and save the changelings and the real wolves and just everybody. But she doesn't know this at the time. She thinks that she has gone off and killed everybody at that point because she's not aware of what she's doing. She's gone.
But she can't stop. So
she
even though she doesn't know that she didn't hurt any of her people, she can't stop. It's not stopping. And that's when Hawke is able to push to get to her and push through the mating bond.
Well, he can only push the mating bond because she breaks through his shield. Somehow mentally, you know, changeling minds are shielded. She breaks through. He like almost passes out or something. And then I think that allowed the mating bond to come through. If she hadn't done that, I'm not sure that would have happened, but it broke through all of his defenses. And I think the wolf, it was like straight to the wolf where it's like, okay, mating bond, now it can happen. And then he's able to bring her, like rein her in. Or I think she actually burns herself out, honestly.
She does.
Yeah.
She does. Because then they need to, they have all these people down. Lara is basically on fumes,
Healing
and
people.
Alice Eldridge wakes up for a second.
Judd goes over and is like, okay, my people are knocked out. We need to know what's happening because, yeah, Sienna also is afraid she's going to do this again. Like, she had this incredible, massive power she couldn't really control. She's burnt out, but when it builds up again, it's going to happen again. The only person who knows anything about the Xi is Alice. So she wakes up, but she doesn't really help them. She's like, the valve, and then she passes out again. She says something that nobody understands. So she actually wasn't helpful in this situation, even though she
It's
woke up
helpful
briefly.
to us because now we have a name for it, for what happens here.
Yeah.
Because and Sienna's passed out at this point. Sienna's passed out. Walker's passed out. She took Judd out.
Well,
Toby
yeah,
and Marley are out.
there were like two different things. Like, she took out the bad guys, and then the second thing is when she awakens, the Lauren net is gone because of the mating bond. And when her power goes out into the net, into the net of changelings, then her family is knocked out. Brenna is knocked out because she's connected to Judd, because it's just like fire racing out across the mental bonds. They don't know. And that's when Sienna and Hawke dive into the lake because they think she's going to explode at this point. What they don't know is what the valve is.
Yes. So one of the reasons that we needed to have this subplot of Lara and Walker, and have Walker talk about his backstory of how he was helping these Arrow children, was because he had a quirk. He had some kind of a helix spinning thingy happening in his head, and nobody really knew what it was, but it dazzled the kids or something.
Like a fireworks show in the mind. I was unclear.
Which also happened to be a valve.
Yeah, and he is able to siphon off, I guess, Sienna's energy or disperse it so that it doesn't kill everyone. It just pumps them up with amazing amounts of energy. Lara and the other healers are able to heal even the people who are dying, who are on death's doorstep from this battle. Everyone has crazy amounts of energy. They're, having sex like rabbits because they're just like trying to just like power up.
And they're all like, let's do that again.
And he's able to stop her from destroying the world, basically.
Yes.
Which is convenient and a little hand wavy, but I mean, she is said to have infinite power at one point. And whenever you have a character with infinite power, it's really a problem. Like, how we're lucky that Sienna is one of the good guys, right? Because without any boundaries other than her own moral compass and her family and her love, I don't know if Walker could be another kind of boundary. Maybe, like, if they say that when there's an X, somehow in the net there has to be a valve that emerges with it in order to control it. And then they've never known this because they've never allowed it to happen before. But having a character with infinite power is, like, as a writer, just as a creator, it can be a problem to deal with, because what can't they do? What problem can't they solve in the future?
Superman has to have kryptonite.
Yeah, exactly.
But it comes full circle. Everybody's happy, everybody's in love, and the full circle comes where Walker does he come to Aiden? Or is maybe
Judd,
it's
you
Judd
mean?
and Aiden. Okay. And we learn that Aiden was one of the arrows that Walker taught.
Yeah, Aiden comes to wherever Judd is, and Judd is like, "Are you here to kill me?" Because the arrows have this code, and since Judd left, he is at risk. And Aiden's like, "No, there's a civil war coming. We're trying to figure out what's going on." And yeah, Aiden was one of the people that Walker helped. So I guess Aiden has some sort of allegiance to the Lauren family, because he tells Walker saved so many arrows by teaching us whatever trick this was that helped them stay sane. We owe him a lot. So y'all are good.
And then we get the surprise of the last line of the book. Why this book is really called Kiss of Snow.
Oh, yeah. But wait, before that, Hawke has this, Hawke and Sienna go back to this cabin that the pack has built for him to have a little privacy. And he gives this like love speech that reminded me of Darcy's speech. It was just such a beautiful, I highlighted it. It was
Oh, wow.
such a beautiful speech that he gives to her. And it was just like something unexpected, very romantic. Hawke hasn't been like the most romantic man ever. He's just very alpha. But yeah, it was beautiful.
How did a Darcy speech kind of glaze over my mind? Probably because I heard someone talking about the last line of the book, and I just wanted to get to the last line of the book, and I was just like, hurry up.
Oh.
Because I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, The last line of the book is that his last name is Snow.
Which was kind of anticlimactic. But
But
it's
I mean,
cute.
yeah, it's very cute. I think
Yeah,
it's cute.
it was cute. This was a cute book. Yeah, I did not like this book the first time. I remember being so disappointed.
Oh.
And now I'm like, what were you thinking? This is great.
This one, I mean, it's still not my favorite, but I do like it better than I did the first time. I think reading it through kind of more quickly, I mean, with the other books, like having it, the context fresh in my mind.
So that was Kiss of Snow, and we are gonna keep it trucking because we're not even halfway through this series. There's so much that happened, but this is essentially where Leslie and I about stopped
I think
reading.
I got 1 or 2 more. I have no memory. Now, Goodreads tells me a different story, but my memory is like, I don't remember anything after Hawke's book, and I've read at least part of 1 or 2 of the next books, so but they'll be new to me 'cause
Yeah, I remember. I do not remember. The next book is Riaz's story. I do not remember Riaz's story at all. I know I read it. I do not remember it at all. But I did. And that is Tangle of Need. So that's what we're reading next. And there's a lot of novellas in here between Tangle of Need, like
Mhm.
Judd and not Judd, Lara and Walker have a novella, which I'm gonna pick up. And then we get to Heart of Obsidian, which I remember the beginning of.
And apparently you said that I told you things about Heart of
You
Obsidian, which
did.
made you read it,
You
that
did.
I don't remember
You
at
did.
all. So I think we're gonna go through Heart of Obsidian and then maybe take a pause and do some of the novellas.
Yeah.
That is the current plan.
Because that is a major Heart of Obsidian is a major turning point in the Psy Changeling world.
But it's still there's 3 books after that for season 1. So, but I think it's still a good place to pause because but I think that's where I definitely didn't get any further than that. And reading that once again, I told like no memory. So it'll be fun to revisit that as if for the first time.
Well, pretty much will be for the first time. So, Leslie, has there been any everyday magic that has happened in Leslieville since the last time that we've talked?
Well, I know that we both recently watched the new version of Sense and Sensibility on the Hallmark Channel.
Yeah.
That was, I guess, a diverse casting. It was mostly Black people in this
It was
version.
mostly Black people.
I don't know.
Leslie and I have this thing too. It's really Leslie's thing because sometimes I just tune it out. But there's genetics, man, and I don't think Hollywood understands genetics. I know this was Hallmark, but still, there's a Hallmark movie with Meghan Markle, and her parents are white.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hollywood
yeah.
will stay putting a whole biracial child with 2 dark-skinned parents and not think, anything of it. But yeah, so it started out fine. I was like, okay, yes, the mother, and would she have those children? There's variations, of course. Then there's a point where you're like, wait, what? What is happening genetically with this family? But the movie overall was wonderful. And our friend Vanessa Riley was a consultant. And she got to be on set and is in the movie.
I blinked and I missed that.
You missed it because it was very subtle. I wasn't sure what scene she was going to be in, and then I just happened. Someone moved out of frame, and I saw her.
She told you she was in it?
Oh yeah, she had pictures on Instagram that she in costume. Yeah, yeah. But overall, Sense and Sensibility, not my favorite Austen, but they did a really good job. The casting, all the actors understood the assignment. Like I've seen all the different versions, and what these characters are supposed to be. These actors were exactly what they were supposed to be. And Lucy Steele even took it to the next level because sometimes the Lucy Steele character is not as overtly manipulative. This, you knew where she was coming from, and I appreciated that about her. So Eleanor was great. Marianne was great. They all understood the assignment. It was a great production for Hallmark. And apparently they did this whole movie in like 6 months. It was incredibly fast production timeline, and it still came out like really nice.
You mean like rehearsed, shot, edited in 6 months? What do you mean?
I mean, Vanessa was in Bulgaria in like November on set, and this movie came out last night. That's incredibly fast. I don't know about
You mean
script
6
writing.
weeks?
No.
You said 6 months.
I know. So 4 months ago, they were still shooting the movie, and it was edited and on TV last night. That's not usually how this works.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Hallmark knows how to just keep things moving.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. You can see, like, when you're watching a Hallmark movie and you can see, like, I used to have to do a little bit of location scouting. And you can tell where whatever's behind the cameraman, behind his back, you don't want them to see. So people just keep walking up a particular corridor, or they sit one way at a desk and there's
Yeah.
only like one angle.
Or they're using this particular mansion for 4 different locations. So this room is this mansion, and this room, the other side of the room is a whole nother house. This is how you do it when you make a film. But
So you do when you make a low budget film.
it was gorgeous. The
Yep.
costumes were gorgeous. The sets were gorgeous.
Yeah.
I found the makeup a little distracting because I don't know that there would be purple eyeshadow in in the Regency. But hey, she looked beautiful. That was my one quibble. Sometimes, especially on Black actresses, makeup is distracting for me when it's just too much for the
'Cause it doesn't
person that
look
they're
natural.
playing. Yeah. But that was it.
So I watched it as well, and I saw they had a couple of songs, some really nice choice songs that they Bridgertonerized by making
Yes.
them just musical,
Yes.
just the music, and they stripped the vocals, and I like that because sometimes when I'm writing, like my favorite coffee shop that went out of business, they only played like instrumentals, and sometimes the instrumentals would be modern songs, and I love that.
Yeah.
My brain really likes that. But I thought that the Willoughby character, I've never really liked Willoughby. I've never really understood him. I've always been like, why aren't you into Colonel Brandon? And this Colonel Brandon, he was very, very like angsty, like pining angsty. But Willoughby was really interesting to me. And I was like, yeah, girl, I can see why you fell for him in this version.
Oh, I always understood Willoughby, especially from Marianne's perspective, because she's a romantic and he seems like the perfect romantic hero. They have so much in common. What I don't understand about Willoughby is everything else that we don't see on screen.
Yeah.
Like all of his shenanigans. Like, who
Yeah.
is this man? We don't really get any understanding of his inner life or his motivations, and that's very difficult. Yeah, the version that actually showed him at the beginning where he was with his baby mama, it was where I can't remember his name.
Is that also the one where he was like looking towards Colonel Brandon's house, like after he got married and all
I think so. I'm trying to remember the name of the actor that played him. And then, you got a little bit more there because you saw what he was doing,
that?
and maybe he's just, a fuckboy. I don't know. Like, apparently, I think that's Jane. These characters, the Willoughbys and the what's the dude in Pride and Prejudice who marries Lydia? These guys are always kind of black
Wickham.
boxes. Wickham, the Willoughbys and the Wickhams of the
The
world.
Willoughbys and the Wickhams.
They're basically the same dude, right?
Yes, she writes the same characters.
Yeah, and okay, fair. But like, what is going on in I want his POV one day.
I did that. I wrote a Wickham hero.
You did.
I
You took
did.
a swing.
I did. I wrote a Colin hero and I wrote a Wickham hero.
Collins. Yeah, I was like, how are you doing Tom Collins? Because that makes no sense to me.
Nobody buys that book, but
I'm sure you did a great job.
it was fun.
Dominic Cooper is the actor I couldn't think of. He was in the 2008 Sense and Sensibility, and that's the one where they show him in the beginning, with this baby from his baby mama, and you don't know what it's like, a cold open kind of thing, and then it circles back around. I think it's that sometimes the performance of the Willoughby character can bring you some shades, and so here he played it very straight ahead. He was just like, "I'm a good dude," and then, "No, I'm not anymore." Oh well, it was still a good performance.
It was a good performance. Worth a watch if you haven't watched it. The Hallmark all month long, they were doing like Jane Austen inspired movies, and my favorite is still An American in Austin. That was my favorite. And then I'm sorry. So there were 4. So it was American in Austin. It was the Paging Austin, and then it's Sense and Sensibility, because Sense and Sensibility is not my favorite Austin. It's like it's almost last. The only thing below it is Sanditon, which I don't even like to talk about.
but it's not my favorite.
Mansfield Park for me is, I mean, I don't count Sanditon because that wasn't that TV experience was not Jane Austen. And I haven't seen a Mansfield Park that I like. But yeah, Sentence of Plenty, it's in the middle. Like
Even with Billy Piper?
I like Billy Piper. I don't like that movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this one is tough, you know. Edward Ferrars is a tough character.
Yeah.
We were texting about this. I love Eleanor, but she's also kind of tough because she's so restrained.
Yeah.
It's a tough story.
Yeah, it is a tough story. She's so restrained. Marianne is so free-spirited. And then you have Edward, who is really kind of dull, but he's responsible. And of course, you know, in my middle-aged life, a responsible man is so attractive. Like, I've never been a Willoughby Wickham kind of girl, ever. I'm not interested.
And then you're like, why is this Eleanor not like Colonel Brandon? Like, why did Colonel Brandon walk into a room, skip over Eleanor, who's the obvious choice, because she's responsible human,
Obvious,
and go for Marianne, who was just ridiculous.
Because he was older and she was younger, and I think it was young person. It was perfect age gap of I want the young girl.
Yeah, which doesn't lend well for him.
Like, I don't see them being happy. I see Eleanor and Edward being happy in a nice boring life. But I see Marianne and Brandon like not realizing we have nothing in common. Do you remember what's that movie where this is the Mrs. Robinson movie where he interrupts the wedding and then they get on the bus?
Oh yes, The Graduate.
And at the end,
their faces just tell the story. What did we just do? That's good filmmaking.
That's gonna be Marianne and Colonel Brandon.
And it reminds me of the characters in Persuasion. Was it Louisa who ended up marrying Colonel Benwick? And they're like, they have nothing in common.
Yeah, but she went through a traumatic experience.
That is true.
Which changed her.
And I guess Marianne did too. I mean, whatever that illness was, writing the same characters. Because Louisa and Marianne are kind of the same character, right?
Yeah, they are.
The same but different. Romance writers have been doing that for hundreds of years. They give them the same but different.
Because that's what we want. We want that familiarity. It's why we're rereading these books. It's why I will spend at least half of my time reading something new and then going back and rereading something that I already know that I like. It's not just a romance reader thing. It's a human person thing.
Yeah, I think so. That comfort.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. And please let us know what you think. You can leave a comment on YouTube with your thoughts on the episode. You can share it with a friend who loves romance, but please make sure that you rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
And you can always check out our book schedule on our website, inkandmagic.net, so that you can read along with us as we go through the rest of Psy Changeling. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.